saying Kaddish put their feet together like Shemoneh Esrei. Those answering the Kaddish is something else. When we not move his feet and walk in the middle of Shemoneh Esrei unless it's a time of need. In a time of need, it is mutter. It's not the same as talking. Talking is very severe during Shemoneh Esrei, but moving around your feet in a case of need is permitted. So, for example, we permit moving the feet, walking in the middle of Shemoneh Esrei if you're in an area that there's too much noise and you can't focus. So you can actually walk somewhere else. The baby's crying. Let's say you did the bad decision of bringing your baby to shul so you can daven with a minyan. Why is that a bad decision? Because the baby can make noise, and then you're going to disturb everybody. So in such a case, you're obviously exempt from davening with a minyan, and daven at home. But if you made that bad decision, the baby's crying, can you walk over to the child? Yes, you can. It's a time of need. So too, if your seer falls on the floor and you can't reach it, can you walk to it? Yes, you can. So in all times of need, you are allowed to walk. Of course, based on this, if there is a siren in the middle of Shemoneh Esrei, you may walk to shelter. Try not to say anything, but at least walking is not considered a hefsek. Your phone going off, if it's not next to you, then yeah, you can walk over to it to shut it off. Correct. Correct. Anything of a necessity that's disturbing your davening, you're allowed to move to get rid of distraction. Right, okay. Okay, proper decorum during davening. So most of these halachas that we're about to learn are mentioned in the Shulchan Aruch specifically during Shemoneh Esrei. And that's as follows. So we said yawning and burping. A person who gets the urge to yawn and burp during Shemoneh Esrei should cover his mouth. Okay, I already mentioned when we did this, you should always cover your mouth. But that's a halacha. You have to cover your mouth when you yawn or burp during Shemoneh Esrei. Sneezing in Shemoneh Esrei is considered a good sign. Who remembers why? What did we say? It's a sign that Hashem is giving you nachas ruach. Right? It feels good to sneeze. So it's satisfying, satisfaction. So it's a sign that Hashem is fulfilling your request. So if you sneeze during Shemoneh Esrei, when you get to Shema Keleinu, throw in all your requests. It's a good omen. It's a good time. Take advantage. What? Oh, do you have to cover your mouth? So it doesn't say you have to cover your mouth when you sneeze, but due to common etiquette, I would recommend doing so. Nothing to do with COVID. Even not during COVID, you should always cover your mouth when you sneeze, right? Yeah. Especially during the 9 days that you can't take a shower.
Refer back to the parenting website of just have to sneeze.
What do you mean 9 days you can't take a shower?
That was a joke for those who got it. The person in front of you will get a shower. Okay. I think you guys get about half the jokes I say during class. I don't always make an issue of them. It's okay. It's better than the girls. The girls get only about 10%. Spitting. 10% of the jokes, yeah. Spitting. So we said it's forbidding. No, we didn't do this. It's forbidden for one to willingly spit in the middle of Shemoneh Esrei as you're in front of the king. However, outside of Shemoneh Esrei, it is permitted for one to spit. Okay, that's the heter, of course, of spitting by Aleinu L'Shabech. As I mentioned in the past, obviously, if it's a shul where they are not scholarly or there are individuals present who are not scholarly and they will admonish you for spitting, then just don't do it. Do it privately. Do it inconspicuously so you don't make an issue, right? Be smart, don't be right. Holding an item in one's hand. So we said during Shemoneh Esrei is halacha, you may not hold an item in your hand because of fear that it may fall and cause it damage. And this will compromise on your concentration. So therefore, of course, initially, you should not be holding a baby in your hand. You should not be holding a phone in your hand unless you're davening from it. You should not be holding anything in your hand that it falling can cause it damage. By other parts of davening, this does not apply. Touching filth and normally covered areas of the body. It's forbidden for a person to touch areas of filth, such as the normally covered areas of the body, while davening. So, right, any area that requires you to wash because of filth and ruach ra, the evil spirit, you're not allowed to touch during davening. And this is throughout the whole davening. Nothing, not just specifically Shemoneh Esrei. Obviously, Shemoneh Esrei is more severe because it's, you're going to have to then walk over to water, to wash your hands. So, but even during other parts of davening, you're not allowed to. So let's give some example what you can't do. You have an itch, don't use your fingers to itch your skin directly if it's normally covered. If you have an itch on your head, don't use your hands to itch your head. You can use your yarmulke like this. You can go like this, right? That's okay. But to go to go deep and under, that's a problem. Now, if you have an itch here, that's fine because it's not a normally covered part of the body. Yeah, what?
So it's the fingernails, or I could go like this?
It's the fingers, yeah, not just the nails, yeah.
What about what's under one's beard? Is this considered normally covered area?
No, the beard here doesn't consider it being covered, no. Okay. So if your person has an itch, then you should simply use, as I said, a garment to itch yourself, and not directly. This applies even if you're able to wash. I can go right now and wash. You're wearing tefillin. You're not allowed to make your hands tummy while you have tefillin on. You know that? Certainly you're not allowed to use your tefillin to itch yourself, right? That's without question. That's belittling of the tefillin. What is a tefillin? A Chinese itch hand? It's usher, right? To use your tefillin to itch yourself. So, no, sometimes you have an itch right behind the knot. You can't use the knot to rub around to get the itch. You gotta, but you also can't use your hand. So what do? Take a tissue. Take a tissue, use a tissue, use something else.
You use like this part of your hand,
The palm, right, like this.
yeah.
Yeah. The pashtus it's mutter, yeah. The pashtus. Okay, flatulating during Shemana Esrei. So there is an isser to flatulate in mitzvah Shemana Esrei. This does not apply by other sections of davening, unless, of course, you're wearing tefillin, in which case it's always forbidden. Now, usually people don't flatulate out of choice. And therefore, this is a kind of interesting halacha. So the bottom line is like this. If you're able to control yourself, you have to. If you're not able to control yourself, then even in the middle of Shemana Esrei, it's not a question of choice, right? You're not able to. But in such a case, you at least have to move your tefillin out of the way. We did this in the last semester, if you remember. Both the shel yad and the shel rosh got to be moved out of the way. And when you're davening in private, specifically in Shemana Esrei, you got to take 3 steps back, 4 amas back, and that's where you're supposed to do the deed. Now, in public, we don't make you do that because it's embarrassing. Yeah, that's the reason, because it's embarrassing. The sages don't want you to be embarrassed.
If you're in that situation,
I love the sages.
should you step out of the room if you're in that situation? I feel like sometimes it happens.
Well, if you're not in middle Shemana Esrei, nobody will notice, so yeah.
If you're not in
If you're not in middle Shemana Esrei, then what's the issue? Step out of the room.
I was just saying, I was davening once in a million where like the person, whatever, and I was like, if you know what's gonna happen, they should just leave the room because they're like, nah, I can't daven. It's like smelling.
Correct. You are correct that when a person flatulates during davening, then it is forbidden for anyone who smells it to continue. That is true.
So should they, in that situation, should they leave? Like,
If they're having stomach problems, they're exempt from davening with a meaning. They'll go daven, let them, check out their issues, work it out, and then daven on their own.
I mean, if you realize in the middle of Shemana Esrei, like, oh. Like,
So middle Shemana Esrei, so then you're stuck. Then the halach is, then, you wait.
But, and have to flashlight around everyone else.
Well, what are you supposed to do? He's in middle Shemana Esrei. Shuckling during davening.
You said for a tzarek, you can leave. So
I know, but the sages didn't require him to because it's embarrassing. Okay? The sages didn't require one to be embarrassed. Shuckling during davening. So you guys ask this a lot. Is this such a thing? The answer is yes. It's actually brought in the Paiskim, in the Shulchan Aruch, that it's customary, especially amongst the meticulous, to move their bodies and shuckle during prayer. It's very good. Yeah. So this is the movement of the neshama, that the neshama moves Ratzei v'shuv. This is a Hasidic concept of Ratzei, movement, and shuv, going back, always going back. Now, there obviously is no halacha which states that you have to do so, right? So that, of course, it's just a custom to do so. By the way, the pasuk that's brought behind this is not that the neshama moves, but it's rather that you daven with all of your body, right? Kol neshama talo kol. My entire soul praises God. All the limbs of my body praise God. So therefore, I move my body when I'm davening. But once again, this is something that's almost instinctive, or not. You don't do because of it's a halacha. I'll share with you 2 stories based on this. Story number 1 with Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz. Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz he lived in the 18th century. He was a great Torah scholar, wrote a number of works in Jewish law, especially in Choshen Mishpat and in Yeridea. Those of you learning Yeridea, familiarize yourself with the commentary of Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz on Yeridea. He's one of the main commentaries there. the Kafta V'Ferach. Likewise, you have in Choshen Mishpat, the Rum B'Tumin. Anyways, but back then, he had a lot of opponents, a lot of opponents, rabbinical opponents, rabbis, colleagues. And there was a lot of animosity towards him from certain groups, and they wanted to basically fool him and cause him to be disgraced and then fired from his position. So what do? They implanted a guy, a prestige, very smart Gentile from a French university. They hired him and paid him to go study under Yonis and Eibeshitz in the disguise of a Jew. And he would become his top pupil. And after a few years, they would come out and discover that he's really a guy and see that Yonis and Eibeshitz was teaching a guy this whole time, a Gentile this whole time. And then they'll say that he's also a fraud, and that's how they'll be able to do the trick. So after a week or two that this student, who's is considered a prodigy, is in his class, Rabbi Yonis Eibeshitz calls him in and he says, "I'm sorry, but I'm dismissing you from the yeshiva." So the people who did this whole trick, they were very, they lost a lot of money and they lost a lot of hope. They were hoping that it would be a political stunt against him. So they sent a messenger to find out why he threw him out of the yeshiva. So he says, "I don't have proof, but I am certain that this person's a Gentile." She says, "How do you know?" He says, "I look at him when he learns. He doesn't move his body. He doesn't shuckle." Exactly, lack of a neshama. So the second story, it's a similar story that happened with my father. I think I shared this with you in the past. I'll just tell you the excerpt regarding this specific part.
Oh no.
Who remembers the story? In Kfar Chabad. No. Some of you guys do. No? I told you guys the story. Yeah.
It's a classic.
In Kfar Chabad. So this is in the 1980s, 1982. There was a family of missionaries that moved to Kfar Chabad in disguise as converts. And they were really missionaries. And of course, no one knew back then. And they were neighbors of my father. They had about 7 children. They were from Denver. They were, from Mormons. They were Mormon missionaries. Anyway, so how did my father find out? It began because one of the children, I don't know how old he was, asked him a very strange question. How many times do I need a shekel during davening? So he remembered the story he had just learned about Yonis and Eibeshitz that I just shared with you. Like, this is weird. So that was a big suspicion for him. And then he started putting 2 and 2 together. And that led him to finding out through their mailbox, through a letter that they received, that they were missionaries. So it was this story with the question of the kid and other things. I'm not going into the whole story again, but basically that's how they got busted. So don't teach this to anybody. We don't want this secret to get out there. So then they'll just start chuckling. And they won't ask. So we know who's a legit Jew and who's not. Let's keep this a secret. Erase that from the audio. We'll have to do a censored edition. Not to walk around during davening. So this is referring to Shemoneh Esrei. Now we'll get to after outside of Shemoneh Esrei. During Shemoneh Esrei, it's forbidden to walk within 4 amos in front of a person in the middle of Shemoneh Esrei. Someone who's in the middle of davening Shemoneh Esrei, it's forbidden to walk within 2 meter space, within 4 amos space of him, as doing so can disturb his concentration, as well as due to the Shekhinah is found there. Okay, now we will learn in the section of the Shemoneh Esrei that halachically this only applies in areas of the view of the person, meaning within his eyesight, because then he gets disturbed. Which, by the way, is true. People walking around, it's disturbing. No? Right? No, think about it. You're sitting right here just learning. Forget a Shemoneh Esrei. You're sitting here learning, and the guy's going back and forth in front of you. Does that disturb you? It does, right? But same idea. Now, according to the Zohar, it applies even in back. Even in the back of the person. Now, if you want to be Zoharic, that's good. It's a good thing. Why not? Based on this, the Alter Rebbe writes, it is forbidden for one to walk around and shul while people in the middle of Shemoneh Esrei because you're going to be going into people's 4 amos. Now, you will notice, and I'm going to emphasize this right now, you will unfortunately notice that many people don't follow this halacha. including people with long beards and white beards and mashpiyim, b'mechilas kvei teirasim, without putting anyone down whatsoever from their high status. I've mentioned many times before, religious Jews, we're not here to follow what other people do. We follow what it says in the books of the Code of Jewish Law. Just because A and B have a struggle with following this law doesn't mean I have to catch their illness in this matter. I will be particular in Jewish law, and the fact that they're not, that's a question on them, not on me. Because why am I emphasizing this? Because some people say, oh, in Chabad we're not careful in this. Oh, in Chabad we're not careful in this. We're not careful in this. It's a halach and shulchan aruch. So your child then's going to tell you, well, Dad, I don't like being careful in this halacha either. If you have the right to not be careful in this law, I'll choose not to be careful in this law. And the problem is because not everyone's following me, I'll be influential. I'll start a Facebook group and I'll make all Chabad follow me. And then everybody will now follow, and I can tell you we don't have to follow it anymore. Obviously, this is nonsense. So just because somebody's not keeping it, or even many people are not keeping it, even big rabbis are not keeping it, doesn't mean you don't have to keep it.
Can you tell them to keep it?
We have a mitzvah v'cheich techiach, sure. You should tell them. Now, those who are makbid in halacha, right? Not during your Shemoneh Esrei, of course not. Rabbanim, those who are makbid in halacha, of course, are careful in this. I'm not saying not everyone's careful. A lot of people are careful. I'm just saying there are people who are not careful with this, and it's a mistake. It's wrong. Not to mention that the Alter Rebbe mentioned this halacha a few places, including in his letters, and he made a really big deal about this. And let me tell you something else. It's the exact opposite. In Chabad, we're most stringent about this, at least according to the books. There's a whole custom that we do differently because of this halacha outside of everyone else. By us, we make sure, after Mincha and Shabbos, like we just did yesterday here in the shul, that I had the pleasure to daven here yesterday, Mincha, for those who were here, that we say Kaddish as you do Hagba and Glila, and finish the Kaddish as the Glila is finished and the Sefer Torah is returned to the Aron. Now, we have the custom of not beginning Shemoneh Esrei until that Kaddish is finished. Why? In order so, in other words, like this. Sorry, until the Glila is finished. If we're going to do, let me backtrack a little bit, okay? Ideally, you're supposed to say Kaddish right after Kriyas HaTorah. And you're supposed to begin Shemoneh Esrei right after Kaddish. Now, we have a problem, because if you say the Kaddish right after Kriyas HaTorah, then the guy with the Sefer Torah is not going to be ready yet. So he's going to still be walking. And he's going to walk, and when people were already finished Shemoneh Esrei. So therefore, what we do is that we lengthen the Kaddish. We say it very long. And in order so people don't step into the 4 Amma space of people doing Shemoneh Esrei. And in the event that they finish Kaddish early, then you wait until the Sefer Torah is returned, until everyone's in their place, in order not to step into people's Daled Ammas. That's what the Alter Rebbe writes that you have to do in order so you don't enter someone's 4 Amma space. The Alter Rebbe then writes, furthermore, one should avoid walking around even throughout other parts of davenings. It disturbs the worshipers. It's disturbing to people. So sit still, stand still, daven in one spot. If you're on shpilkas, go daven outside, go daven in the Cheder Sheni. You know what shpilkas is, right?
Let's say you're walking
If you have ants in your pants, as they say.
There are some schools where there's so many people there, it's
Uh-huh.
difficult to.
If it's difficult to stand still,
It's mostly
it's a
the
sign you have too much coffee. Have less coffee next time.
space.
But no, also it's the same idea. Also, as people, anything that someone's going to be doing out of ordinary, out of normality, can be a disturbance to the public, right? Even with shackling, if someone, like everyone going like this, no one's going to bother you. But if someone's doing like ma'idim by shackling, he's almost touching his toes, when he's moving. So that's erratic. That's erratic behavior. That's not, everyone do your own thing, whatever helps you daven. But in public, you're going to disturb people. You can't be eccentric in public.
I have a question, because, for example, this morning I started after everybody, the Shachris, and therefore, right before I noticed they were going to start Shemoneh Esrei, I went into the other room so I could continue davening, and I could also hear myself without
Very good.
bothering anyone else.
Beautiful.
That's okay. It wasn't like I had to stay in the room and be
No.
quiet while
No, unless you're part of the 10.
I wasn't part of the 10.
Very good. So you did a very good thing. That's the good thing to do. You can daven out loud. You get the best of all worlds.
Can I walk in the zal while they're davening Shemoneh Esrei to go to my seat?
Not if you're going to pass through people's 4 Amos, no.
Yeah.
If you're going to be in the back of them, let's say that door is open, you go through there, and you're going to be in the back of everybody, then it's only a problem according to the Zohar. So if you don't want to be a Kabbalist, you can do it.
Oh, really?
You have the right to do it, but if it's going to be in front, that's just straight up
Yeah.
against halacha. You can't. Matt, okay, guys, we just finished the chapter. We're going to begin this chapter, and then we're going to go to story time. Okay.
Rabbi Goldstein,
Yeah.
so realistically, it's a relatively small place to daven, and let's say on Shabbos when there are a lot of people,
Right.
and people will inevitably daven Shemona Esrei within the same.
Oh, that's okay. You can daven Shemoneh Esrei within someone else's 4 hours Shemoneh Esrei. You both have the Shekhinah. You're both in front of God. The problem is when you're, but in that case, if you finish, you have to wait till the person in back of you finishes. You can't take 3 steps back until the person in back of you finishes, unless it's a distance of 4 amas. That's why if you ever notice by the Rebbe, they always made a distance behind the Rebbe, that there should be a distance of at least 4 amas, so the Rebbe doesn't have to wait, because the Rebbe did keep halacha. The Rebbe, of course, kept halacha and would never go back 3 steps until the person in back of him was done. There was one time that the Rebbe davened in a little bit of a crowded area where they were not in the area of the shul, and they weren't able to arrange it beforehand. Maybe it was the Rebbe's house. And some of the burly Hasidim came, and they literally lifted up the guys in the middle of the Shemoneh Esrei and moved them, so they wouldn't be within the Rebbe's 4 amas. So when the claim was, right, that how can you can't go within the front, so they did it from the back. From the back of the person. Obviously, that's forbidden to be done, but you can't ask questions of Chassidim. What can you do? Okay, chapter 6, guys. We just finished chapter 5. Again, chapter 5 focused on the subject of how to pray, the language, the movement of the body, position of the body. Chapter 6 goes into a whole chapter relating to restrictions prior to davening. In the Shulchan Aruch, this is chapter 89 in Shulchan Aruch. That's the main chapter that focuses on this subject. We're going to learn about eating and drinking before davening. We're going to learn about saying hello, good morning, shalom aleichem before davening. We're going to learn about doing malacha, getting a haircut, doing exercise, jogging, weightlifting, you name it. What things can you not do before you daven? Well, we'll get there. We'll get there. Okay, eating and drinking before davening. So we're going to split this halacha to a few parts. First, let's discuss before Aleis HaShachar. Aleis HaShachar is daybreak. Daybreak, as we've mentioned in the past, is a big dispute when it begins, but let's just say we're going with the Magen Avram, the shortest, the latest time of daybreak, which is nowadays, I believe, at, 4:30? Yeah, okay. So let's say it's 4:30. So before Aleis, if you wake up before Aleis, can you eat? So the answer is from the letter of the law, if it's 30 minutes before Aleis, then you can eat. You can eat up until 30 minutes before Aleis HaShachar. There's no issur to eat. So if Aleis is 4:30 till 4 o'clock, you can eat, okay? Even a meal. So you can have a very late dinner at 2 o'clock in the morning. Okay? Past Aleis, past a half hour before Aleis, so let's say past 4 o'clock, then you cannot eat a meal, you can only snack, okay? So snack means you can have a drink, you can eat fruits, you can eat vegetables, you can eat dairy products, you can eat meat, but if you eat mezainis, you have to have less than a kibetza, which is less than 55 grams. If you eat bread, less than 55 grams. And if you drink alcoholic beverages, it has to be less than 55 cc.
Can't drink alcohol after 4.
Not more than 55 cc. So let's say a beer, a beer, for sure you can't have. And this happens. You have all the time. If people go to the Matzuda, they do all-nighters there. And they have, bottles of beer. Once it's a half hour before Aleis, that's it. But I suspect the people going up there and doing that are not really so minded about this halacha. But you never know. You never know. You have all types today. I'll tell you something funny. When I was a teenager, I had I wasn't a rabbi when I was a teenager. I wasn't born with a beard, as they say. And I was brought up modern Orthodox. I had a lot of friends from different backgrounds. So I actually had a number of friends that were not that were not religious, and I had friends that were brought up religious but went off the derech, weren't religious anymore, OTD as we call them, off the derech. Anyway, so I was on Lubavitch back then, when I was 16, 17. So we were in upstate New York, and we were doing like a Shabbos weekend, and the group of friends that I was with, some of them didn't keep kosher, and on Shabbos they went ahead and they made meat and milk. You know, they cooked meat and milk together on a barbecue, like burgers with cheese. And there was, yeah. So of course I didn't partake in it, but you know, they did. So what I wanted to mention, I'll never forget, is that there's one of my acquaintances there. He came from a Lubavitch home. He wasn't from anymore, and he said, "I can't eat it." So they asked him, "Why can't you eat it? Like you're not religious. Like what do you like? You eat? You go to McDonald's all the time." He says, I never eat cheese. It's not Chalav Yisrael." That's what he said. He's makban Chalav Yisrael. Yeah, serious, true story. So because of that, he didn't transgress a biblical prohibition of meat and milk. Because he keeps Chalav Yisrael. So is that messed up? Of course it's messed up. But at the same time, you know, and there's certain things, customs and stringencies, and even things that aren't stringencies, just traditions that can be the last matter that reminds you of your Jewishness that then helps you bounce back. So we should never belittle anyone's customs. Anyways, okay, this is all based on halacha, guys. Based on Kabbalah, according to the Zohar, it's a severe prohibition to eat anything before Alayis HaShachar, once you woke up. You woke up, you're not supposed to eat anything past midnight. Okay, practically, do we follow this? Sephardim do. Sephardim are very, very particular in this. And therefore, once they go to sleep, if they wake up past Chatzais, they do not eat or drink anything until after Alayis HaShachar. After they daven.
This is a standard sleep of 60 breaths.
It's half hour. If you slept for a half hour before Chatzais, or even after Chatzais, and it's after Chatzais, then they don't eat or drink anything due to Kabbalah. However, Ashkenazim are lenient, and also in Chabad we're lenient in this. Okay, we're not makbid in this matter. Okay, let's continue. Okay, after Alayis HaShachar. Once it's Alayis, 4:30 a.m., things change. Very important, guys. Let's review again. Until a half hour before Alayis, till a half hour before 4:30, which is 4 o'clock. No restriction halachically. Kabbalistically restriction, which Sephardim follow. Once you're in that half hour period before Alayis, everyone agrees there's a restriction against eating a meal, which I defined earlier, but a snack is permitted as I defined earlier. Once that half hour passes and now it's Alayis, there is now a very severe prohibition against eating anything. Okay? And this is based on the verse which states, Leiseichal al hadam, do not eat over the blood. That's a verse in Scripture. That verse is interpreted many different ways. It's used for many different mitzvahs or obligations or prohibitions. And one of them is you're not allowed to eat and drink before davening. What's the reason? There's a few reasons. Reason number one is because it's considered arrogance for one to pamper his body before he has made his dues with God. First, speak to Hashem, meet Hashem, then go eat. To pamper yourself before you meet with Hashem is considered a way of haughtiness, arrogance, and therefore is forbidden. Another reason is because, this is Kabbalistically now, why did Hashem create humans with a need to eat and drink? Why can't we be created like it will be in the future era, that we don't need to eat and drink? We'll survive off air. We'll survive off elikus. Right? Just like a rock. A rock doesn't need to eat and drink to exist. So the reason is because Avodas Habirudim, right? One of the whole ideas of the mission down here is for us to elevate the sparks of creation. And that is found and embedded within the foods and beverages that we consume. When, however, do we have the ability to elevate it? Only after our godly soul has been properly installed into our body and animal soul. Prior to its installment, when it's still hovering in the air, so to say, we're not able to elevate anything. Now, when a person goes to sleep, his godly soul goes above. When he then wakes up, it doesn't fully become reinstalled. Think of it like every time you turn on a Microsoft computer, you have to wait like 10 minutes till it loads up and wakes up for Microsoft or Android. That's one difference I noticed between this machine of Apple and the others. This is very quick. Well, Microsoft and Android just take forever. Anyway, so right, they have to like reinstall themselves. So it's the same idea. So when does the installation is it complete? That's only after you finish davening. That's your nefesh kiss is fully inside, fully able then to refine and elevate things. So if you eat, one second, if you eat and drink before davening, you don't have the ability to elevate it. So you're basically causing a waste of food and a waste of beverage. Furthermore, you're causing this food and beverage to never get elevated. So that's the Kabbalistic reason behind the prohibition. Yeah, what is it?
So is it after brachos or after the
Full
full
davening.
davening?
Shachris, Shemana Esrei. To wait till Shachris, Shemana Esrei.
So practically speaking, we're getting up, let's say, we have Hasidus at 7:30.
Oh, so I didn't say practically. Right now, we're still in the middle of the discussion.
It's very theoretical right now.
We're gonna get to a final ruling in a moment, okay? Now, one exception to this is water. It's permitted to drink water prior to davening because water is not considered something of pleasure, right? We said before the main halachic reason is due to arrogance. Well, what's arrogant about drinking water? Water doesn't have a taste. It's just thirsty. It's basic human necessity. Okay, so water is permitted. What?
You slurp it, it's arrogant.
If you slurp it, I don't know. A Slurpee, yes, a Slurpee would be not okay. Okay, plain water, not a problem to eat and drink prior to davening, even on Shabbos. What about coffee and tea? So the Paiskim discussed regarding coffee and tea if it's permitted or if it's a transgression of the arrogance aspect. And the final halacha is it's permitted to drink prior to davening plain coffee and tea without sugar or milk. That's from the letter of the law because it's to help you stay up and help you daven so you don't fall asleep. Furthermore, the custom is to allow drinking even with sugar and milk because it's very difficult for some people to drink bitter coffee and bitter tea. And it's also sometimes too hot, so you need the milk, or it doesn't taste good without the milk. So you see that the world has brought all of these flexibilities and leniencies towards this Isser for the sake of increasing their concentration during prayer. Nonetheless, those who are meticulous don't drink it with sugar and milk. They just have plain coffee or plain tea without anything else.
Are you allowed to drink coffee before Kiddush?
Before Shachris, yes.
No, but on Shabbos.
No, once you've already davened Shemana Esrei of Shachris on Shabbos, there's an Isser to eat or drink anything before Kiddush. Now, what you can do if you don't have wine available or grape juice available is simply make Kiddush on the coffee.
I could do that.
Are you allowed to drink
I'll
coffee
tell you.
in the middle of davening?
Huh?
Are you allowed to drink in the middle of davening?
Are you allowed to drink in the middle of davening? That is a very good question. It's discussed in the book in one of the chapters. We're going to get there. Bottom line is that you shouldn't. Drink before davening. Especially if you say a new bracha. If you say a new bracha, it's a hefsek, right? Now, keep this in mind, what we just learned, because we're now going to come to cases of exception. Because many of you may know that in Chabad, we are accustomed to eat and drink before davening.
What? It's a din of Shulchan Aruch.
Ah, and that is one of the classic talking points of non-Chabadnikim against Chabadnikim.
It's like the one thing when
I
I asked him
was-
what to watch out for on camera, he was like, "Don't eat before davening." Everything else, do whatever. Don't eat before davening.
I just gave it for Bergen last. You'd base it Gimel Tammuz. I gave it for Bergen, and during the Verbregen, Tzanzer Rav came to my Verbregen, and this is what he asked, and oh boy, did he hear a mouthful from me.
He actually said he doesn't understand, so now I can report back to him.
Well, we didn't explain it yet.
Well, I'm waiting.
Okay.
I'm saying once you explain it.
Okay. Let's just first finish the bottom line halacha, and then we'll get to the exceptions. When it began eating prior to alais, so if you began your meal prior to alais, even then you must stop when alais arrives. As we said before, you cannot begin or even continue a meal once it is alais shachar. Okay. So let's now go into cases of exception. Are there any cases of exception that we permit eating and drinking before davening? After Alei Shachar, in general, we said is forbidden, or a very grave prohibition. According to Kabbalah, it's like really something very serious. So how do we do it? So it's as follows. For medical purposes, it is permitted to eat foods and have drinks prior to davening for medical purposes. This is explicitly in Shulchan Aruch. This is in Rambam, Shulchan Aruch. This allowance applies to all forms of foods and beverages. So for medical purposes, you need to have a McJackie. If you're from Miami, you know what that is. You need to have a double burger with lettuce and everything else in it. Before davening, then for medical purposes, you got to do what you got to do. You have to wash and have a meal before davening for medical purposes. You got to do what you got to do. You're allowed to. Okay? It's nothing to do with Chabad. This allowance applies to all forms of food and beverages, even if they are foods that are sometimes eaten for mere pleasure. Meaning, even if it's relevant to haughtiness, certainly having a burger with fries is haughtiness, right? But if the doctor says you need to have a burger and fries a day because you're so skinny and we're afraid that you'll become, those people who have issues with their eating, so that's what he has to do. The Rebbe's father wrote to the Rebbe because the Rebbe, it's very funny. The Rebbe, on the one hand, strongly and vehemently forbade Chassidim from mortifying their bodies through fasting and anything else. Very vehemently. It's not derech the Baal Shem Tov, but he himself did it to himself. The Rebbe himself practiced this. And his father wrote him, we have the letter, telling his son, the Rebbe, when he was young, when he was in his 20s, that I am instructing you and commanding you to eat before davening, because he would fast the whole week. No, his father, the Rebbe Levi Yitzchak. I am commanding you to eat before davening, and I want you to wash on bread before davening. And I'm commanding you to do this as a mitzvah of kibbut av v'em.
Where is this written?
Likutei Levi Yitzchak, Igros Likutei Levi Yitzchak. Yeah.
How would the Rebbe Rashab told some
But it's not, because it's for health. We just explained. Yeah, it was for the health reasons. For health reasons. Now, what about if it's not for health reasons, but I'm hungry, and I can't daven with concentration if I'm hungry. So eating and drinking to satiate hunger and thirst and for concentration in prayer. Chabad custom. Despite the above allowance, it is forbidden to eat or drink prior to davening for the purpose of satiating one's thirst or hunger, unless one is not able to have proper concentration in his prayer until he eats or drinks. So even though it's permitted to eat and drink for medicinal purposes, that's only if a doctor told you have this issue, you need to eat and drink for that issue before davening. However, if you don't have a medical issue, but you're simply hungry and thirsty, that's not a medical issue. That's human. That's being a human being. So to stop eating and drink because you're hungry and thirsty is forbidden. Daven first. But if you're doing it because you can't concentrate because you're hungry or thirsty, then you're allowed to get rid of that impediment against your concentration and eat and drink for that reason. You guys understand the nuance there? It has to be with intent to concentrate in your davening.
Did you say that in the Shulchan Aruch?
Absolutely. This is pure Shulchan Aruch. 100%. This allowance applies even in today's times when in general people do not have much proper intent during prayer. Nevertheless, if he chooses to eat and drink for this purpose of strengthening his concentration, then he may do so. This is all from Shulchan Aruch. So you can't say, today nobody concentrates anyways. The Shulchan Aruch explicitly negates that argument. It says, even today you're allowed to follow this. So all those people who have complaints against Chabad, it is widely misinformed, but I'll also explain to you a little bit where it comes from. It's a mixture of being, chapter 89, it's a mixture of being misinformed and Chabadic and being misinformed. It's a package deal here that causes this, so to say, disalignment. And that's as follows.
I've overheard people say that
The what?
7:70, in a bit the 12:30 shot where he's like, can't have breakfast yet till we finish. They'll say
Oh
to
yeah?
each other,
So you have heard people say that. That's funny. People davening at 12:30 saying that. Interesting. I haven't met those creations yet. Anyway, so let me explain. I'll preface this concept with one more thing. We always get upset when people oppose what we do. Any group, anybody. When we have opponents and speak out against what we're doing, nobody likes it. But we have to be a little more mature and understand, where does it come from? Where is it coming from? And we know, as Chassidim of the Baal Shem Tov, that every attack below comes from some issue above. And I'll give you an example. The opposition to Chassidus, the Alter Rebbe explained, was based on certain things Chassidim were doing wrong. And therefore upstairs there was opposition, and that created opposition down here. So even if their claim may not be fully correct, there is a concept behind their complaint of something that we're doing wrong. I'll give you another example. Alter Rebbe writes in a very famous, lengthy letter, telling the Chassidim not to belittle Chas v'Shalom the Torah scholars of the Misnagdim and to respect the Torah scholars of the other camp. And then he writes, but if you feel that you can't do so because you're upset at the fact that they speak against the Baal Shem Tov and they speak against right back then there wasn't Chabad, but the other Hasidic groups and the Hasidic masters, and they burn their writings. Right, we know in Vilna Tanya was burnt, the writings of the Toldus Yaakov Yosef was burnt. So Alter Rebbe writes like this. Yaakov Yosef Polno, the student of the Baal Shem Tov, the Alter Rebbe writes, you should know that the reason why this happens below is because above in heaven they see issues with how we Chassidim are behaving. If we're not properly learning our Rebbe's Torahs, the Baal Shem Tov's Torahs, and not implementing them properly, that's what causes below that down here they burn it. So if you're so upset, you have to be upset at yourself. The Alter Rebbe writes this in a letter. My point is, so if there's an opposition down here, if the Misnagdim are opposed to something we're doing, we shouldn't just dismiss it. We have to do a counting of the soul, a chesh b'nefesh, see why are we being attacked on this. Perhaps there's a element of this that we're doing wrong. And in Shemayim, they're trying to arouse us on this. So I think regarding eating before davening, that is very clearly the case. Okay? Everything has to follow halacha. Let's just read over here in the brackets. The Chabad custom encourage eating and drinking prior to prayer for purposes of increasing concentration. Chabad did nothing. All we're doing is saying follow the halacha that if you're hungry and thirsty and can't concentrate and would like to concentrate on your davening, then eat and drink before davening. It is, however, forbidden for one to simply eat and drink because he's hungry or thirsty without having intent to do so to strengthen his concentration in prayer as stated above. The halacha doesn't move. The halacha remains the same. Now, because there are many people who aren't aware of what I just said, and they think it's like a mitzvah by us to eat before davening no matter what, even if you're going to daven in 20 minutes, you're not even paying attention to your words, it's just, you just do it always, you always eat breakfast before davening. Of course, that's a grave error. And due to that grave error that many people have, that causes the opposition to oppose even the actual halacha. So the bottom line is like this. It's permitted for everyone, Hasidim and Misnagdim, to eat and drink before davening, and Sfaradim to eat and drink before davening to help with their concentration if they're hungry and thirsty. It's forbidden for everyone, Hasidim, Misnagdim, Sfaradim, you name it, to eat and drink before davening simply because I'm hungry or thirsty, and certainly simply because I believe it's a custom to do so. That's 100% forbidden to be done. So now, the truth is that everyone follows this heter. And this is the conversation I had with this Sanza rabbi last week. I told him, do you drink coffee before davening? So he says, yeah. But he says, but it's mutter. I said, what do you mean? What do you mean it's mutter? The heter brought in the poskim is only regarding plain coffee. Do you add milk and sugar? Do you add milk and sugar to your coffee? He said, yes. So I said, what's the basis? That's forbidden. It's forbidden to... Listen, he called out all Chabad in the middle of the Fabregan, so I had to answer. So I said, if that's the case, you're relying on the heter, that since you need a drink it in order to concentrate, and you can't drink plain coffee because it's too bitter, so you rely on that heter for yourself. So why are you coming against us for relying on the heter to help with the... It's the same heter. You're doing it with coffee with milk and sugar. I'm doing it to have a piece of cake, or pretzels, or cereal and milk. What's the difference? And then we had this whole conversation and we peacefully agreed. Yeah. 89. Pay test. Pay test, pat with a test. Bread. What? Well, Yom Kippur, of course. On a fast day, of course, you can't eat and drink before davening. That's no question. Also, on Rosh Hashanah, Hasidim don't eat and drink before davening because we try to fast before the mitzvah.
But it's accepted by the Ramah.
Yeah. Shulchan Aruch. Okay, guys, we'll have to continue this tomorrow. I want to do a little bit, at least, of the story. Let's get to our story. Tomorrow, we're going to learn that you have to say Shema beforehand. Okay, we'll see that tomorrow. Shema is. We did that already. I think you missed it. We did it in length.
What?
Why people don't say Shema on time?
No, I'm saying
Yeah. So we spent a long time on that. We explained all that. It's all in the book.
Everything's a concentration.
You guys want to give him a rundown on why sometimes in Chabad we allowed to daven past the Zman? Remember we did this? Who was in the class?
What, davening v'yechidus?
No, that's something else. That's davening without a minyan. Here we're talking about davening past the time. We did it. We spent a long time on this.
Kavanah.
We explained and proved, based on the Masar of the Baal Shem Tov, that it's more important to daven not on time than to not daven on time.
Like showing up to the bus without your car.
Exactly. It's better that you get on a bus late to the right direction than get on a bus on time to the wrong direction.
The bus
That's the best way you can do it.
Of course, that's the best of both worlds if you're able to. But what, do you expect us to do everything? What do you think of us as Tzaddikim G'daylim? Well, Litvish doesn't daven barichas as Lubavitchers who are Oived Hashem do. You'll never see a Litvisher daven shachas for 4 hours. We studied it. We did that. We explained it in length. It's not a 1-foot answer. If you want a 1-foot answer, I'll tell you what it says in Shulchan Aruch. You daven mincha twice after chatzos. That's it. That's a simple answer. Okay. Who remembers what we were up to? Wants to give us a quick update as I get this back on. We were in the middle of the story in Perek Hanizakin in Maseches Gittin regarding Korban Habayis. We already mentioned how the first general was sent, Neron Caesar, to occupy, conquer Jerusalem, and he got cold feet. Who remembers why?
He shot arrows and asked.
Exactly, shot arrows, and then he asked the child, and the child said, Hashem's going to take vengeance against Edom for doing so, and so he got cold feet and converted. A second general was sent. Who was that? That was Vespasian. We mentioned already that he placed a 3-year siege around Jerusalem, a big battle between the Biryonim and Rabbi Yochanan regarding to make peace. As the rabbi said, they were on the left spectrum of the political world back then, and the Biryonim were on the right. And they said, no, we got to fight a war. And this went to a stalemate because they refused to give in to each other. So the Biryonim didn't have the soldiers to fight the war because they listened to the rabbis. And the rabbis didn't have the ability to leave and make peace because the gates were controlled by the Biryonim. In the end, the Biryonim went ahead and they burnt the storehouses. We went through this in Lent last year. They burnt all the storehouses and there was a huge famine. We learned the story of the famine and how bad it was. So this is now what we're up to. The peace deal that was made, the agreement that was made between Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai and his nephew Abba Sikra. So here we are. Oh, why is it not on? 1 second. Okay. Abba Sikra, Reish Be'er Yerushalayim. Abba Sikra was his name. He was the head of the mob. He was the mob. What do they call it? The Godfather. That's the head of the mob. He was the godfather of the mob, the Jerusalem gang, and of Yerushalayim. Bar Achsei, the Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, he was the son of the sister of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. He was the leader of the rabbis in Jerusalem back then. And he asked him to come to him privately, b'tzina. So we're getting here, guys, inside information. Was not published in the regular newspapers back then. You had to get the special alternative press. L'gabai asa. He came. Amarle. Our name is Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai gave his nephew over the head and said, what are you doing? You're causing the whole nation to die in famine. Till when are you going to continue with this behavior? Amarle, he said back to him, my Yovid, what am I supposed to do? Rebbe, his uncle. If I say anything against their war efforts, they'll kill me. Katuli, they'll kill me. Amarle, he said to him, Yochanan ben Zakkai said back to his nephew, Chazli takan didi. I have a little bit of a takan, a little bit of a benefit that can be accomplished if I leave. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said, I can accomplish and speak the Romans into maybe saving something of the Jewish people. So basically, in essence, what Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai is telling his nephew is arrange for me to be able to leave the gates of Jerusalem to meet with the Roman delegates. Amarle, but how are we going to do it? Because they're not going to let him leave. And Abba Sikra, even though he's the leader, even the leaders have to follow rules. Right? Amarle, nokut nafshecha b'ktsiri. So Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was told by his nephew, make believe that you're ill, play sick for a few weeks, and let everyone come visit you by your deathbed. And then let's bring socks that were in change for like 3 months, very smelly, or anything that smells bad. It doesn't say what it is. I made up socks. Something that has a really bad stench. And hide it by you. And then we'll say that you died. You're beginning to stink. And they'll want you to leave Jerusalem because you smell so bad. They don't want you to stay in the city. And we won't let anyone else carry you other than your students. Why? They shouldn't feel that you're really fake and really are alive. How will they feel that you're alive if other people take you and not your students? The kolel at the inhu yadi the chaye kolel memisa. Because everyone knows, people know that a dead person weighs more than a light person. So they'll feel your weight. If you're not very heavy, they'll know you're still alive. So therefore, he arranged for only Rabbi Yochanan Zakai's students who are in on the trick, or at least when they see that he's really alive, will understand, have enough wisdom to understand what's going on, to not make an issue of it, and let him leave the city. By the way, this is a halach in Shulchan Aruch. This is called in halach in the Talmud, that v'achai noise es atzmai, a live person carries himself. That's why if you walk outside an area without an Erev and you carry someone, you don't transgress biblically. Because a live person carries himself. A person's soul is considered to carry the body.
Is that true for like babies?
Oh, great question. According to Alter Rebbe, it's true even by babies, yes.
But not everyone?
Not everyone. Yeah.
So rabbinically, a mother's on a carry a child?
Biblically, not rabbinically. Yeah. Ovid Hachi, they did this. So they did this trick. So now it's like he died, right? He got sick. Everyone visited him. Now they said that he died. He was smelling. They must have put a corpse or something that smells really bad, maybe a dead cat, a dead something, next to him. And his student, Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yeshua, and they carried him from two different sides. When they arrived by the gate, the guards, who were the part of the gang of Abba Sikra, they wanted to stab him. Stab Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai to make sure he's really dead, that this isn't some kind of trick. Amar Lahu, Abba Sikra said to the gangsters, Yemru or Abandakru, people are going to say they stabbed their own teacher. So they say, okay, we won't stab him, we won't spear him, we'll push him to see if he's alive. Bo limitchafe, the desire to push him. Amar Lahu, and he said to them, Yemru Abandakru, people are going to say that they pushed their own rabbi. So you see, even these Jewish gangsters had respect. Yeah. They say a story of Rav Yosef that I heard this from his son, Yaakov, my teacher. They said that they were once walking, and one of the big Jewish mafia members of the Jewish community in Egypt, like a guy who was like taken, like 100 lives or something already under him. And he was walking and smoking on Shabbos. So he asked his father, "You going to tell him it's usher to smoke on Shabbos?" So his father said to him, "If I tell him, then he may not just smoke on Shabbos; he may kill on Shabbos as well." And in the end, he said, as they got closer, and this mafia leader in Egypt saw Rav, who he was the chief rabbi then. He was young, but he was elected the chief rabbi. Saw him, he quickly put away his cigarette out of respect for him. He quickly put away his cigarette. So he said, you see, even people who kill, who steal, who murder, they have kvod for chachamim. Anyways, so they didn't push him, and they let him out. Paschule Bava, they opened the gates. By the way, Bava means gate. That's what's Bava Kama, Bava Basar, Bava Mitzia, the middle gate, the first gate, the end gate, right? Nafak, he went out. Kimat lahasam, and he traveled. He walked all the way to the Vespasian. And in Mir Hashem, in the next year, we will discuss their conversation and how an interesting conversation it was. In the next episode, guys.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you. Thank you very much. Your words will make